Hello, I'm Alma Angeles and you're watching Eagle News International. Good evening to you, CJ.
Good evening, Alma, and good evening to everyone joining the broadcast. Here are tonight's headlines.
Frantic Afghans trying to flee the Taliban takeover clung to an American plane as it prepared to take off from Kabul airport as thousands of people desperately search for a flight out of the country today.
The death toll from Haiti's powerful earthquake jumped to over 1,200 as crews desperately dug through collapsed buildings for survivors in the Caribbean nation still reeling from its president's assassination.
And Malaysia's prime minister and his government resign after just 17 months in office, throwing the country into fresh political turmoil as it battles a serious coronavirus outbreak.
And Dr. Edsel Salvana, an infectious disease expert, says the Delta variant is more concerning than the Lambda variant of coronavirus.
First, the death toll from Haiti's powerful earthquake jumped to over 1,200 as crews desperately dug through collapsed buildings for survivors in the Caribbean nation still reeling from its president's assassination. In Lake Cayes and other hard-hit cities on the southwestern peninsula, most of the population spent the night sleeping outdoors in front of their houses or what remained of them amid fears of new aftershocks. At least 1,297 people were killed in the 7.2 magnitude quake that struck on Saturday about 100 miles to the west of the densely populated capital Port-au-Prince, which was devastated in a massive 2010 quake. Some 13,600 buildings were destroyed, more than 13,700 damaged, trapping hundreds under rubble and leaving more than 5,700 people injured, according to the country's Civil Protection Agency in an update. Rescuers faced a new pressure with Tropical Depression Grace approaching, raising fears of torrential rainfall, flash floods, and mudslides from late Monday, according to the U.S. National Weather Service. The United States and other nations have pledged to help Haiti cope with this latest disaster. Haiti's neighbor, the Dominican Republic, said it was shipping 10,000 food rations and medical equipment. Mexico also sent an aid shipment. Cuba and Ecuador dispatched medical or search and rescue teams. Chile, Argentina, Peru, and Venezuela also offered help, as did the United Nations. The Caribbean nation is still recovering from a devastating 2010 quake, which killed more than 200,000 and left more than 1.5 million Haitians homeless.
Meanwhile, Malacanang said President Rodrigo Duterte is extending his sympathies to the people of Haiti who lost their loved ones in a 7.2 magnitude earthquake that struck Haiti on Saturday morning. Citing the Department of Foreign Affairs, Roque said there are no Filipinos affected by the quake that has claimed the lives of more than 8,000 people. Take a look.
On behalf of the Filipino nation, President Rodrigo Roa Duterte extends his sincere condolences to the government and to the people of Haiti for the tragedy and devastation caused by the strong earthquake that struck Haiti. Ayon sa initial report ng Department of Foreign Affairs, wala pong Pilipinong naapektuhan ng lindol sa Haiti. Ang sentro ng lindol ay hindi po sa Port-au-Prince, ang kapitolyo ng Haiti. Kung saan naroon ang marami sa ating mga kababayan.
Earlier, Assistant Secretary Eduardo Meñez of the DFA Office of Public and Cultural Diplomacy said the agency continues to monitor the situation in Haiti. To date, there are an estimated 470 Filipinos there. Reports show that the 7.2 magnitude earthquake, which was followed by a series of aftershocks, struck 8 kilometers from the town of Petit Trou de Nipple, about 150 kilometers west of the capital Port-au-Prince, at a depth of 10 kilometers. Some 13,600 buildings were destroyed and over 13,700 damaged, trapping hundreds under rubble and leaving more than 5,700 injured. The strong quake exacerbated the challenge of battling the COVID-19 pandemic as Haiti's hospitals were swamped by thousands of injured residents. This happened as Haiti is still recovering from the most devastating tremor or trembler that killed roughly 250,000 people 11 years ago and reeling from the assassination of President Jovenel Moise last July 7. Haitian Prime Minister Ariel Henry, who flew over the region to survey the damage, has declared a month-long state of emergency.
Meanwhile, a hospital in hard-hit Lake Case, Haiti, is overwhelmed with quake victims, while crews are desperately digging through collapsed buildings for survivors as the death toll of the Caribbean nation's powerful earthquake had jumped to over 1,200. Again, let's listen in.
Il y avait une accumulation de personnes. C'était vraiment dur. Et on n'avait pas de personnel. On avait des personnes qui travaillaient à l'hôpital. On n'avait pas de personnel, bien qu'on les a apportés pour nous jusqu'à 6 heures. Mais on avait bien géré la situation. Donc on fait de même pour aujourd'hui pour bien gérer la situation pour notre population.
The emergency room in Lake Case in southwestern Haiti, which was devastated by the 7.2 magnitude quake on Saturday morning, is expecting reinforcements to help treat some of the thousands of injured. Doctors and patients are jostling in the small hospital rooms as even more patients pour in. Hospitals in the country's third largest city near the epicenter of the quake were quickly saturated with a massive influx of the injured. Already injured, grieving and afraid to shelter indoors, Lake K residents now dread the torrential rains, violent winds and mudslides that could come with tropical depression Grace today.
Back here in the Philippines, Malacanang urged Filipinos in Afghanistan to prepare for repatriation after Alert Level 4 was raised in the wake of the Taliban's stunning takeover. Presidential spokesperson Hari Roque urged Filipinos to coordinate with the Philippine Embassy in Pakistan, which has jurisdiction over Afghanistan, to facilitate their repatriation. Watch this.
Well, unang-una po, nananawagan tayo sa mga Pilipino. Nag-alert level 4 na po tayo. Gumagawa na po tayo ng hakbang para tuluyang kayong ma-repatriate. So pwede po kayo makipag-ugnayan sa ating embassy para po kayo ay ma-repatriate na dito sa Pilipinas. No? I understand we have around 170 or so na mga kababayan dyan at 39 pa lang po yung nare-repatriate. No? So nanawagan po kami sa mga kamag-anak sa Afghanistan, pauwiin nyo na po dito sa Pilipinas yung ating mga kababayan para masiguro ang kanilang seguridad. No? Hindi ko po alam kung anong magiging desisyon ng ating pamahalaan pagdating sa Taliban regime, pero sa larangan po ng international law, no, hindi naman po elemento ng statehood ang recognition. Yung recognition po ay just declaration na meron pang estado at yung pagre-recognize ng isang gobyerno ay isang mensahe na handa tayong makipagkaroon ng bilateral relations dun sa bansang yon. Iiwan ko na po yan sa DFA yung ganyang desisyon.
Alert Level 4 is raised when there is a large-scale internal conflict or full-blown external attack. Under this level, the government undertakes the mandatory evacuation of Filipinos in the area. Citing the Department of Foreign Affairs, Roque said 32 Filipinos have already been evacuated and are currently in Doha, Qatar, awaiting their flight back here. A group of 19 more Filipinos are also set to leave Afghanistan. Since the U.S. begins its final troop withdrawal from Afghanistan last May, the Taliban forces have started to swiftly seize several areas. In just weeks, the Taliban has overrun most provinces with little resistance and on Sunday took over Kabul and the presidential palace. Afghan President Ashraf Ghani fled the country, effectively collapsing the government as chaos and fears gripped the capital and thousands tried to escape. According to DFA figures, there are an estimated 130 Filipinos in Afghanistan.
Meanwhile, victorious Taliban fighters patrolled Kabul after a stunningly swift end to Afghanistan's 20-year war, as thousands of people mobbed the city's airport trying to flee the group's feared hardline brand of Islamist rule. Take a look.
داسې ماجر دا جنگونه خلک ټول بې ګناه خلک مړه سو خلکو جایدادونه سرایونه مارکیټونه تباه سو الله دې رحم وکړي خدای دې خیر پې کړي نو کابل هم په خطر کې ده نو
U.S. troops fired shots into the air and all commercial flights were canceled at Kabul airport Monday as thousands of Afghans crowded onto the tarmac in the hope of catching any flight out after the weekend Taliban takeover. Dramatic footage posted on social media showed a scene of chaos on the runway, with civilians frantically clambering up an already overcrowded and buckling set of air stairs. It was a desperate bid to board a parked passenger plane and escape the city a day after the government's collapse. A crowd of hundreds watched on. Those who successfully climbed the stairs helped others up, while some hung from the stair railings by their hands. Also disturbing footage of people falling from a U.S. Air Force jet that was leaving Afghanistan and en route to Doha. The U.S. State Department said American troops had secured the perimeter of the airport as they evacuated embassy employees and thousands of Afghans who work for Washington's interests since they toppled the Taliban in the wake of the September 11 attacks. The U.S. Embassy in Kabul tweeted to tell American nationals and Afghans to not travel to the airport. The scenes at the airport were reminiscent of the chaos that enveloped Washington's earlier bungled escape from Vietnam in 1975, even as Washington swatted away that comparison.
In other news, China is ready to deepen friendly and cooperative relations with Afghanistan, a government spokeswoman says, after the Taliban seized control of the country. Beijing has sought to maintain unofficial ties with the Taliban throughout the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. Watch this.
阿富汗塔利班方面呢，多次表示希望同中方发展良好关系，期待中方参与阿富汗重建与发展，绝不允许任何势力利用阿富汗领土做危害中国的事情。我们对此表示欢迎。中方尊重阿富汗人民自主决定自身命运前途的权利，愿意继续同阿富汗发展睦邻友好合作关系，为阿富汗和平与重建发挥建设性作用。
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Boris Johnson said that the UK's priority is to deliver on its obligations to UK nationals in Afghanistan and those who helped British efforts there as troops race to get them safely out of Kabul. Take a look.
Sam, the situation in Afghanistan continues to be extremely difficult, getting more difficult, I would say. And our priority is to make sure that we deliver on our obligations to UK nationals in Afghanistan, to all those who have helped the British effort in Afghanistan over 20 years, and to get them out as fast as we can. So it's clear that there is going to be, or there is going to be very shortly, a new government in Kabul, or a new political dispensation, however you want to put it. And I think it's very important that the West collectively should work together to get over to that new government, be it by the Taliban or anybody else.
Now, Afghan President Ashraf Ghani said that he had fled the country on Sunday to prevent a flood of bloodshed as the Taliban entered the capital, capping a lightning offensive across the country. Taliban militants have now entered the capital, and 3 senior Taliban sources told AFP that the insurgents had taken control of the presidential palace, and they were holding a meeting on security in the capital. Ghani said he believed countless patriots would be martyred and the city of Kabul would be destroyed if he had stayed behind. Abdullah, who heads the peace process, had earlier accused Ghani of leaving the people to this situation.
Jihadists around the world will be buoyed by a sense of victory after the Taliban retook control of Afghanistan. That said Raffaello Pantucci, a senior fellow at the Est Rajaratnam School of International Studies in Singapore. Now, the Taliban were in control of Afghanistan on Monday after President Ashraf Ghani fled the country and conceded the insurgents had won the 20-year war. Take a look.
Movement. So I think there's going to be an undoubted sense of wind of victory blowing through the sails of jihadists around the world as they say, look, victory is attainable. This isn't a hopeless struggle. Keep to the fight, stick to your beliefs, and 20 years later, you can end up winning this war. And I think that narrative will carry them forwards for some time into the future. It remains to be seen the degree to which Afghanistan will become a base once again for international terrorist groups to launch attacks outside. I think certainly Al-Qaeda will be rejuvenated by this and will strengthen itself. So I think a major part of the rapid collapse of the ANDSF was due to leadership. It's not clear that the leaders were all standing and fighting their ground. I think to the soldiers on the ground, the loss of allies who are providing important enablers and support is also would have weakened their resolve and desire to continue to fight, knowing that the Americans were leaving and that therefore they would be taking this on their own and they would be very exposed. I think we're not going to see immediate attacks emanating from Afghanistan back towards the West because the Taliban will have learned from the past 20 years that letting that happen on your territory leads to quite negative and dangerous and difficult outcomes. So I think from their perspective, they will try to keep a cap on these things, but it's a question about how far they will go to impose that on various groups that have fought alongside them for some time in Afghanistan on the battlefield and who ultimately want to launch attacks or try to overthrow other governments elsewhere. Hardware, I think clearly they will be bolstered by the large stocks of ANDSF weaponry that they will collect. And then I think there's some other high-end hardware which will be interesting to see how it's used. Drones in particular. There are lots of battlefield drones that the Americans have given to the Afghan forces, and we've already seen a number of them fall into Afghan hands. Some of them, I suspect the Taliban will use. Others, they may try to sell or hand over to allies or other countries around Afghanistan who are not American allies like China or Russia or Iran. And
meanwhile, airlines are now avoiding flights over Afghanistan as the local aviation authority today urged them to reroute after it gave Kabul airspace to the military. British Airways, Lufthansa, Singapore Airlines, Air France, and Virgin Atlantic announced they were no longer flying over the country after the Taliban took over Kabul. The Afghanistan Civil Aviation Authority said in a notice to airmen that Kabul airspace has been released to the military. It advised airlines to reroute as any transit through Kabul airspace will be uncontrolled. Lufthansa, whose group includes Austrian Airlines, Brussels Airlines, Eurowings, and Swiss, and Air France said they would no longer use Afghan airspace until further notice.
Meanwhile, speaking about Afghanistan during an interview on LBC Radio, British Defense Secretary Ben Wallace says it is the right thing to do to bring back all those people we have an obligation to. The former British Army officer says he wants to see as many of these people come through the pipeline as possible. Visibly breaking down, he says he has regret that some people won't get back. Watch this.
And, at the very least, our obligation has to be as many of these people through the pipeline as possible. But I think I also said, and it's a really deep part of regret for me, Some people won't get back. Some people won't get back, and we will have to do our best in third countries to process those people.
Why do you feel it so personally, Mr. Wallace?
Because I'm sold. Because it's sad, and the West has done what it's done. And we have to do our very best, Nick, to get people out and stand by our obligations. And 20 years of sacrifice is what it is.
And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
This portion is brought to you by North Luzon Express Terminal.
Malalayong lugar ang kanilang narating para maghanap buhay. Tulungan ang pamilyang iniwan sa sariling bayan. Yan ang ating mga overseas Filipino worker. Pero dahil sa di pangkaraniwang pangyayaring hatid ay krisis, may ilan sa kanilang nagpasyang umuwi. Pinagyaman ang sariling lupain, nagtayo ng negosyo na kasama sa puhunan ang sipag at tiyaga. Ang mga OFW, maraming sakripisyo, ninanais maging kapaki-pakinabang maging sa kanilang pagbabalik bansa. Sapagkat ang ating mga bagong bayani, Pilipino pa rin sa puso at damdamin.
Welcome back. Britain's Interior Ministry today asked police to review the social media accounts of people applying for gun licenses after a 22-year-old shot and killed 5 people, including his mother and a 3-year-old girl. Here's Aribel Celestino to give us an update. Hello, Aribel.
Hi, Alma. And yes, Britain's Interior Ministry on Monday asked police to review the social media accounts of people applying for gun licenses and revisit existing permits after the country's worst mass shooting since 2010. On Thursday, Jake Davison, 22, shot and killed 5 people, including his mother and a 3-year-old girl in Plymouth in southwest England before taking his own life. His social media accounts revealed misogynistic views and an interest in right-wing politics, guns, and violent video games. But the local police restored Davison's gun license and his weapon in July, months after they had been removed following an assault allegation, a decision now being scrutinized by the police watchdog. The UK government is planning to publish guidance on firearms licensing applications that will affect all 43 police forces in England and Wales. And while Alma, Britain has low gun crimes rates and strict controls on the ownership of firearms, with most police unarmed. Only 4% of homicides were caused by shooting in England and Wales in the year to March 2020, according to the latest government figures. Licenses are granted for sporting rifles and shotguns only after stringent background checks, including character references and mental health assessments. Private ownership of firearms is banned in nearly all cases. Back to you, Alma.
Thank you very much, Aribel, for your update on that mass killing there in the United Kingdom. You stay safe.
Thank you so much, Alma, for having me today. I'm Aribel Celestino, and we live in interesting times.
In other news, Malaysia's Prime Minister and his government resigned just after 17 months in office, throwing the country into fresh political turmoil as it battles serious coronavirus outbreak. After submitting his resignation to the king, the 74-year-old took a parting shot at enemies within his coalition. Watch this.
Saya telah melakukan pelbagai ikhtiar hingga ke saat akhir untuk nak menyelamatkan kerajaan Perikatan Nasional setidaknya sehingga selesai tugas menguruskan pandemik, program vaksinasi dan pemulihan ekonomi. Saudara sekalian, ikhtiar ini tidak berhasil disebabkan ada pihak yang rakus untuk merebut kuasa daripada mengutamakan nyawa dan kehidupan saudara-saudari sekalian.
He has claimed that several MPs who pulled support from his coalition, including scandal-plagued ex-leader Najib Razak, had been angered that he refused to get corruption cases against them dropped. The country is facing its worst COVID-19 wave yet. Many are angry over Yassin's handling of the crisis, but he has quit without a clear succession in sight.
Here in the country, Dr. Edsel Salvana, an infectious disease expert, says the Delta variant is more concerning than the Lambda variant of coronavirus disease. Here's the doctor. Thank you. Take a listen.
Yung Lambda kasi, ito ay tinatawag na variant of interest. Ibig sabihin, it's a lower level than yung tinatawag na variant of concern katulad ng Delta. At ito po ay nakita po natin una sa South America and mukhang meron siyang yung mga mutations na maaaring makaapekto sa efficacy ng ating vaccines. Pero hindi pa po ito proven. Sa katunayan, sa US, ang US CDC does not even consider Lambda variant of interest. So kailangan lang po talaga natin itong bantayan. Sa akin, mas nakakatakot pa rin talaga ang Delta. At kung anong ginagawa po natin para sa Delta, gagana po yan para sa Lambda. And yung Lambda kailangan ng pag-aralan, pero mas nakakatakot pa rin talaga ang Delta.
Confirmed on August 15 the detection of its first case of the coronavirus variant first identified in South America, the Lambda variant. The Lambda variant case is a 35-year-old female, but is still unknown if it's a local or returning overseas Filipino case. She was asymptomatic and tagged as recovered after undergoing the 10-day isolation period. The DOH said it is currently conducting back tracing of contacts.
A coronavirus curfew was announced Monday for Australia's second biggest city of Melbourne, with residents confined to their homes overnight as authorities work to stamp out a Delta variant outbreak. Now, more than 5 million Melbourne residents will be unable to leave their homes between 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. from today evening, with essential workers requiring permits to be on the street. Victoria State Premier Dan Andrews said the decision came after a series of street parties, pub crawls, and home gatherings over the weekend as Melbourne reached a tipping point in its latest outbreak. Andrews also announced that stay-at-home restrictions would be extended to September 2, saying it was necessary for the city to avoid the fate of Sydney, where it has fundamentally got away from that.
Staying in Australia, its biggest city announced tighter COVID restrictions, including heavier fines and tighter policing, as authorities battled to contain a Delta outbreak and said they were seeing the most concerning day of the pandemic so far. Take a look.
Asking our citizens to do has been the most difficult decision of my life and the most difficult decision our government hopefully will ever have to make. But it's to keep our community safe. But I appreciate our community also understands the changing nature of the Delta strain and our ability to move with it, to get in front of it. And the case numbers overnight are very concerning, extremely concerning. We cannot see this trend continue. Too many people, a handful of people aren't, and that will have devastating consequences because the Delta variant leaves no room for error.
Particularly in Greater Sydney, was way too high from our perspective in terms of what we were trying to achieve. And our part in this is to get New South Wales Health ahead of the Delta variants, The fines are some of the biggest fines that I've ever seen, and we will be issuing them as of today.
Now, residents of Sydney going into an 8th week under stay-at-home orders will now face heftier fines for flouting rules or lying to contact tracers, with current restrictions proving insufficient to stop the spread. Lockdown restrictions were also extended across the entire state of New South Wales for the first time this year, coming into force Saturday afternoon for at least 7 days. Police would boost patrols and checkpoints, while hundreds more Defence Force personnel will help enforce stay-at-home orders.
In other news, residents of the southern Portuguese city of Évora seek shade and other ways to cool down as temperatures hit 40 degrees. Watch this.
Vir assim para um jardim, sítio com sombrinha, tento não andar muito, não andar muito ao sol.
Tento ficar em casa, ligo ventoinha, luzes apagadas, janelas fechadas para entrar muita luz, para entrar calor.
Meanwhile, firefighters in northern Morocco are battling to put out 2 forest blazes, according to a forestries official, as the North African kingdom swelters in a heat wave. Due to the heat wave in our country, a fire broke out in the Jebel Sugna forest, according to Rashid El Anzi, director of the Water and Forestry Department in the Chef Shakwen region. He said firefighting planes were being used to tackle the conflagrations which had already destroyed some 200,000 hectares or 500 acres of forest. Several parts of the North African kingdom have seen temperatures of up to 49 degrees Celsius or 120 degrees Fahrenheit, according to weather authorities. He also said the cause of the fires was not known, but they had been spurred by high temperatures and strong winds, which are expected to last into today. Morocco joins several other Mediterranean countries that have seen forest fires in recent weeks, including neighboring Algeria, where at least 90 people were killed in wildfires last week.
Meanwhile, an ongoing fire in Avila in west central Spain has devastated at least 5,000 hectares of forest, forcing the evacuation of some 600 residents on Sunday. The blaze comes amid a heat wave that has already broken Spain's maximum temperature record at 47.4 degrees, according to provisional data. The Weather Office said that 15 of Spain's 17 autonomous regions were on alert for high temperatures. The heat wave comes after a code red report from the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change this week warned that the world is warming far faster than previously feared. A draft IPCC assessment seen exclusively by AFP says that increasing temperatures and aridity had lengthened fire seasons and doubled potential burnable area across the globe.
In other news, gunmen have killed 3 people at an agricultural college in Nigeria's northwest Zamfara state and kidnapped 20 others, including 15 students, according to the school on Monday, in the latest in a wave of mass abductions. On Sunday, at the College of Agriculture and Animal Science in Bakura, unknown gunmen attacked the school around 10 p.m. or 2100 GMT. Now, Registrar Aminu Khalid Maradun told AFP they killed a policeman and 2 security officers and abducted 20, including 15 students. The 5 other abductees are staff and family members. Another school official confirmed the attack. The gunmen forced themselves into the school through the pedestrian gate, and they took away the hostages, according to Abdullah Aminu, in charge of accommodation at the school, telling this to AFP. Now, they killed 3 security personnel in a shootout. Armed kidnappings for ransom now make almost daily headlines in Africa's most populous country, 7 years after Boko Haram extremists shocked the world by taking 276 girls from Chibok. Schools targeted by criminal gangs in the north and center of the West African country are usually in remote areas where students stay in dormitories with only watchmen for security.
Eagle News will be back with more stories.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lumipas man ang panahon, hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
Welcome back to the news. The Philippine Agriculture Office in Seoul, South Korea, announced that they have already obtained the final approval of the Korean government to lift the temporary prohibition of chicken meat and pet birds or birds other than poultry imports from the Philippines. Maria Alilia Maghirang, Agriculture Attaché in Seoul, in a memorandum addressed to Agriculture Secretary William Dar, which was shared to reporters today, noted that this was following the PAO's appeal submitted to the Korean government early this month. In March of last year, the Republic of Korea, through the Ministry of Food, Agriculture and Rural Affairs, or MAFRA, prohibited the imports of Philippine chicken meat and pet birds under import sanitary condition of Philippine chicken and import sanitary condition of birds except poultry in accordance with H5 avian influenza outbreak in the Philippines last year. Now, on July 15, MAFRA issued an administrative notice for the removal of the temporary suspension to import poultry and pet birds from the Philippines effective of August 6 of this year. Maghirang noted that they have accomplished several requirements to facilitate the exports of Philippine chicken and pet birds to Korea.
Now in sports, let's have Alan and Eva Basalyaje for their latest on the LA Galaxy and versus Vancouver. Wise, let's listen in.
In the Western Conference, third-ranked LA Galaxy takes on number 13 Vancouver Whitecaps.
in a game that, based on current standings, favors the higher-seeded Galaxy.
How do Galaxy fans feel about their team's chances tonight? And what about their thoughts when it comes to in-person attendance here at Dignity Health Sports Park?
We should win at least by 1 goal. Vancouver is not a top-tier team, but I mean, they always come and play tough.
It feels pretty good. I hope Galaxy wins tonight.
So last time we lost against them, but this time, you know, they're playing a lot better in the last 3 games. And we're hoping to see Dos Santos out there, maybe even Chicharito, and I think that would definitely put us over the top.
Oh, I hope they come out strong and score some goals. I'd love to see some Galaxy goals for sure. To beat Vancouver, I think, you know, just focus. It's sometimes they lose focus and concede some goals, so just to be better on that.
It's gonna be LA Galaxy who's gonna win. Every match we've been to, LA Galaxy has won. But they have their technique, they have their game plays. I'm sure they'll use those, and they have a pretty strong midfield and defender, so I'm sure they'll get better or do better this time.
I think they need to step it up a little bit more. We need to see some more plays out there. They need to really step it up. Let's pick up that practice. Oh, I think they need to bring in Chicharito. They need him out there. Let's go, Mexico!
Vamos a ganar. Vamos a pasar sobre el Vancouver mínimo 3-1. Pues y jugar como jugaron la semana pasada. Y aunque no tengamos al Chicharito hoy, pero tenemos otras personas que van a hacerlo igual y con más corazón y van a salir adelante.
I got vaccinated right away because just in case the Galaxy would say, you know, vaccinations only. So I mean, I'm not too worried about the pandemic. I'm like full steam ahead. It's fine with me. But I understand. So the cases are rising. But I mean, I won't miss a game.
We do what we can. We're vaccinated, wearing our mask, taking precautions as we can, washing our hands. So definitely still scared, but trying to do what we can to do our part.
Crowd's coming back. It's been a lot of fun. You do see a lot of people being a little more cautious than other people. I know my wife is one of the ones that doesn't go anywhere without a mask, so good for her. But you know, in there, everybody's having a good time, and hopefully being as safe as possible. I'd like to see them make it a mandatory vaccine or a negative test before they come in, but obviously that's a lot to ask for.
With the crowds coming back, it's nice, but I'm always hesitant. I'm always careful. I wear my mask in there, and I just hope people do the same.
This whole pandemic thing, it still makes us nervous to come to the game. There is the social distancing, but we still keep our mask on. I mean, we still have the risk of, you know, being affected, but so far it's been great and everybody's been following rules, so we just started coming back again.
I'm vaccinated now, so I feel more comfortable coming out here, but yeah, let's all try to get vaccinated. Come on, let's do it. Let's make a change.
Todo está bien, todo está protegido y venimos con mucho ánimo y todo va a salir bien hoy.
Over 16,200 were in attendance for the game, many of whom spread high-energy enthusiasm to the rest of the stadium. For Galaxy fans, a landslide victory would have given them an even greater reason to celebrate. But as it turns out, the game results were tighter than what they would have liked.
LA was on the board first around the 32nd minute of the first half. On approach to the penalty area, Efrain Alvarez spotted Kevin Cabral, who was lurking near the 6-yard box. Alvarez connected with Cabral, who easily threaded the ball between the legs of a defender straight into the net. The 1-point advantage, however, didn't last. Just under 5 minutes of the start of the second half, Ranko Veselinovic and Galaxy goalie Jonathan Bond jousted for a Vancouver corner kick, but it was Ranko's header that won the duel and evened the score. In extra time, LA and Vancouver pushed for a final goal, but neither succeeded. Frustration was evident in some players who turned the contest into a shoving match. Fortunately, cooler heads prevailed, and both clubs walked off the field with a point each added to their standings.
So LA settles for a tie. But what the LA Galaxy needs to do now is regroup, especially since their next opponent is the Western Conference 5th-ranked team, the Minnesota United.
There's a lot of regular season games between now and the November playoffs. So what Galaxy needs to do is to focus and keep the pressure on in every match to stay near the top of the list.
In Carson, California, Ivan Allen, Eagle News, we live in interesting times.
Thanks, Iwan, Alan.
What a great way to end tonight's broadcast. You know, Alma, with everything that's happening in the world right now, we have the wildfires, we have wars, we have floods and earthquakes in the middle of the pandemic. You know, maybe we should take a pause, reassess where we went wrong, and do things right moving forward. So that's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm CJ Hero. Take care, everyone.
And as I always say, at the end of the day, there is always something to be grateful for. I'm Alma Angeles, and we live in interesting times.